Good morning, guys. We are talking about bad strata creating big drama. We've got Greg, a strata expert, on this morning to talk to you about the pitfalls, the horror stories, and the success stories. Stay tuned. This is going to be super helpful for any owner in any strata building. Morning, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Billy, as always.
It's so insightful to have you here. It gets me so excited as a owner in a strata building. I'm just sure you must talk to people and they must just say, "I wish we found you 5 years earlier."
That's a very common comment, or if they have left over the years and when they come back, they go, "We made a terrible, terrible error." Yeah, but that's fine, and that's just strata living.
Yeah, but this is relevant. I think 1 in 7 families for Australia are now involved in strata. I can only see that getting more as well.
Yes.
It's a popular way of, and it works really well. But it's designed for sort of harmony and organization, and sometimes you see that go the other way around.
Very much the case. Very much the case. So, as you know, Billy, we are a strata management company, but we exclusively only look after court-appointed work. So I'll make sure that everyone's aware that we're not looking to take strata buildings away from existing strata managers. We're strata experts, and we consult to other owners, corporations, and other strata managers. And we look after the dysfunctional side. And what we try to do is make sure that they're not dysfunctional when we hand our buildings back to them. But I think you wanted to talk today about how do owners, executive committees select the right strata companies for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people, when they're buying their first property in strata, they're just taking on the management that's already there, and sometimes they like to be involved, sometimes they like to be really removed from that process. So what are the small questions you can ask from the start to sort of know whether you've got the right person on the job?
Look, we'll start off with some fundamentals. Let's assume for a second that you've had the same strata manager for the last 5, 6, 7 years. The contract's coming up for renewal. It's no different than any other commercial style of contract. What you should be doing prior to the expiry of their contract, go to the market, get a couple of quotes and compare, right? And that's where the problem lies, because a lot of executive committees and owners will sit back and go, "John Smith, Proprietary Limited strata manager, we love him to death, but this is his annual fee. I've got a quote from 2 other strata firms and they're a couple of $1,000s cheaper." That's not how you compare strata manager to strata manager. Just the annual fee, you're in trouble. So to give you a practical example, when we're coming up for the termination of our appointment from the court, we ask the owners to go off and get 3 quotes. We don't like getting 2. We want them to get 3 quotes from 3 different firms. And then what we do is we do an analysis for them, and that just breaks down the basic annual fee, what they charge for all their incidentals, what their fee for additional work, their hourly rates, and that's fine. But then you've also got to look at what does the owner's corporation want from a strata manager moving forward? What is their experience? Have they may have been a strata manager for 20 years, and the other strata manager may have been a strata manager for 15 years, but the firm that's got 15 years may be more experienced in what you're looking for. In other words, are they good mediators? Can they problem solve? They guys with 20 years, are they running off to firms of solicitors to get basic advice from you? You know, while that may not be a charge from the strata manager, you've got additional fees that are going into, legal fees. And that's what you've really got to ask. You've got to ask some pertinent questions, and then we do an analysis. We come back and say, this is where they break down. We don't make any decisions for those, and that's left up to the committee. So you've really got to do some deep diving, and you've really got to ask the questions, what are you expecting and what type of service? Is your committee at the moment very proactive? Are they prepared to do a lot of the background work as their role as a committee, or are they looking for the strata manager to do 99% of everything? And so we offer that service not only to our clients, but to anyone that's looking for something to be able to compare, because where do you go to actually work out how long they've been in the industry, what their experiences are, and bottom line, what are the end costs are going to be to the owners corporation.
Now, where
It
do
sounds
you
very
go?
simple.
Is there a website, or is there a compare the market, like doing your car insurance?
Oh, look, there's a couple of firms out there that do it. We do it in-house at the moment. But the big question is, if you're just pumping in some basic information, they're not going to be able to ask you the straightforward questions. How is the building being run previously? What are your biggest concerns? Are you going to be holding 2, 3, 4, 5 general meetings during the year? You don't know, but you can look at that, and that's what we do look at when we do this consulting work for clients. We ask the deep questions, and then you've got a fair comparison. And if you look at, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, if you're going off to buy a car and you've decided on the brand, but you don't know what model, you've got to then look at, do you want power steering? That shows my age. Do you want all the extras? And if you do, are you going to be absolutely using them? And you've just got the big tick, 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 tick box. No, it doesn't come included, or it's an optional extra. And that's where a lot of strata firms will have so many more additional charges. It's not the base annual fee. It's not just the base photocopying. Some strata firms say, we will charge you for reading an email, sending an email. Some others won't charge you for that. Some others will say, we have a fair use policy. In other words, if we get more than 25 emails in a week, it's free. It's chargeable. If it's under that, it's free. So they're all the little things. And because once you've signed that contract, it's too late.
Of course.
You're in a binding contract. We weren't aware. Well, that's not, an excuse of not paying a bill. And that's why sometimes owners have a tendency to flip-flop from strata manager to strata manager. It takes a while to get to know your building. And if you've signed a 3-year contract and you're not happy, then you've got to be able to find a reason to terminate. And just because you don't like their fees and charges isn't a way to break the contract.
Now, I've got another question for you. You mentioned off air, sometimes you've got a building and they're doing a really good job on that one, but it doesn't always mean they're going to be the specialist for another building. Do you find some people are better in others?
Oh, absolutely. It is. If I give you 2 basic examples, you've got a strata manager again, or a firm that has does the normal day-to-day repairs, sending out a plumber for a nice tiny little leak, and sending the electrician out for a blown fuse or something like that. And he's really, really good. They're proactive. They jump on those type of work orders. and then you decide that you want to take him on, but your building's also now got concrete cancer, or it needs a new roof, or it's got some structural issues, and you've got to get engineers involved, you've got to get council involved. That may be beyond their day-to-day running. They may be able to attend to it, but they've got to have to learn on the job. And you're going to be paying for them to learn on the job. Or they think they know what they're doing and they get themselves into trouble, time-wise, because it's taking so long. They've got to hold all these extra meetings, or they don't get the meetings done correctly, or motions aren't passed correctly. They're not going out and getting the mandatory 2 quotes, or whatever it may be, or sending contractors who are not experts in their field. It might be, we've got a brother who's an engineer, but you don't just need an engineer. And taking on what Sydney's going through at the moment with all the water, they will send someone in there to clean the mould. Well, that's not good enough. Just cleaning mould off, and if it's really, really bad, you need a occupational, hygienist to go in. What's causing the mould? Is it just a normal leak? But you've got to find those things. And with a occupational hygienist, they will tell you what type of mould you've got. It can be, and mould's deadly. You've just spraying it with some vinegar and hot water it might kill that, but it doesn't affect and get rid of the actual causation. So you've got to look at the experience. One of the other questions that you should be asking your strata manager and the firm, because you're remembering you're not signing a contract with John Smith, the strata manager, you're signing a contract with, Billy Strata management firm, and he may appoint John Smith, right? What happens if John Smith decides to leave, or you want to change, or they change internally? You've got to be able to have some type of a say as well. We don't want to change strata managers. Or if he retires, who are they going to give you? You want to have these types of input. So under the new Fair Trading Act, which is, unfair contracts, owners' corporations now have the right not just to be presented a contract and say, sign on the bottom line. You have to have negotiations, and you have the right as an owners' corporation to negotiate, to say, if you change strata managers internally 3 times, we want an out clause. So you've got to be able to look at all these types of things.
One more question.
Yep, sure.
I know you can't name favourites as such, but if you were to sort of speak to someone today and say, here's 3 people you can turn to just off the top of your head, any sort of final names that come to mind?
I really can't answer that, Billy. We don't play favourites because if you're looking at some of the bigger firms, again, it comes down to, it may not be the firm, it may be the strata manager. I know an enormous amount of really good strata managers. I know some really good firms, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get that strata manager out of that big firm. Sure. Now, you can request it, but the last thing you want is a strata manager that's really, really good, but he's already at capacity. So the firm may want the business, but if he sits back and says, oh, look, I'm now managing 100 buildings, I can't take on another strata owners corporation. So you've got to be able to, they're the type of questions that you've got to be able to look at when you're actually shopping around. Who is going to be appointed to us, and be able to, and you've got that negotiation skill. Ability, I should say, but that's what we're going to be looking at for anyone that's looking at it. We'll say, look, the 3 firms that you've nominated,
frozen a little bit there.
No, that's okay. And freezing.
Yeah. So if people need your help and people are looking for a new Strata manager, New Year,
Pitfalls
just give me a call.
of the internet.
Yeah, I was just saying, if people
I'll
need
just
your
wait
help,
for Billy to come back.
they're looking for a new Strata manager, can they give you a call? We've lost you, Greg, but I'm sure the answer would be yes. Greg Williamson, Stedman Williamson
Or I might
Hart,
keep talking.
and yeah, you can give him a call anytime. Greg, thank you so much for coming on.